My college draft is proud to announce our conference called Educate You. Educate You core areas will cover recruitment, retention, and how to build a strong alumni base of underrepresented and first-generation college students. All right, welcome to another edition of the Educate You podcast being brought to you by My College Draft, where education is the new money. I am your host, Lamont, and like always, we have a phenomenal panel. We have Dr. Ricky Frierson, our resident scholar, and Mr. David Harvey. I ain't gonna mess with you, David, but David is our chief creator, chief visionary. So I ain't gonna mess with you, David. Now, before we jump into the title, we want to properly introduce our guest today, Dr. Wade. If you don't mind, can you introduce yourself to the people, please?
Certainly. Good morning to everyone, and hope you're safe and well wherever you may be. I'm Dr. Gourjoine M. Wade. I have the pleasure of serving my undergraduate alma mater, Grambling State University, currently as the interim vice president for student affairs. Definitely a pleasure to be able to do that work at home. Full circle moment for me to be able to do the work at the place where everybody is somebody. Definitely passionate about working with African American students, but also first generation college students, and trying to close the cycles and the gaps that exist between those students and academic and educational attainment. So looking forward to our conversation today.
Oh, that's awesome. Again, you listen to the Educate You podcast brought to you by My College Draft. Dr. Wade, if you don't mind, I'm just curious about the motto. Where did that come from?
A place where everybody is somebody. It's entrenched in our history. Our first president, Charles P. Adams, was sent to Grambling by Booker T. Washington at the bequest of the Black farmers in North Central Louisiana who wanted something better for their students and their young people. So Booker T. Washington sent Charles P. Adams there to start our first institution, which became Grambling State University, and throughout the history from him on to Ralph Waldo Emerson Jones and all of our great presidents after him, it became a known thing that Grambling was a place that no matter what, it was a place where everybody was somebody, no matter your background, no matter your fiscal or economic challenges or backgrounds, you would be somebody at Grambling State University. So that has become entrenched and entwined in our history and the greatness of the institution.
I love it. And that's a good segue into our title, which is It Takes a Village. And one of the reasons that the title kind of rang volume, especially right now, there's so much going on in our communities right now. So as I say, it takes a village. What comes to mind? We're going to start with David, Dr. Frierson, and then you, Dr. Wade. That's David. What comes to mind when I say it takes a village, especially what's going on with all the verdicts, all the different disruption that's happening in our communities?
Oh man, I think the phrase says it for me. But at the same point, is always been that. So we've always had to be a community and be able to uplift each other and be able to try to help each other move in the right direction. I know last week we talked a little bit about some of the different things that are going on after the verdict, so to speak. But I don't feel like it's anything new. It's still us trying to find the ways to push forward and understanding we need each other in order to do that.
Dr. Frierson.
Yeah. Well, good morning to everyone. First and foremost, but I think the first thing that makes me think about is that it debunks the notion in some aspects of self-made individual, self-made man, self-made woman, self-made millionaire. So when it says it takes a village, it also makes me think about the fact that publicly or privately, someone is looking out for you. Someone is doing something or doing the hard work to provide an opportunity that you might not even recognize was done to set you up for the position to be ready for the opportunity to go advance onward and upward in your life. And so you never know, what's going on. If we look at the backdrops of history here, we see that many of our ancestors and the heritage that we come from had to make sacrifices, had to make risk, had to do things to put us in a situation. And so sometimes we are now in a entitlement situations sometimes, as not all, but in some, in which we think that our present situation is just our doing, just our own doing, just by our own efforts, not recognizing the ancestors, the legacies, the communities that have slowly but surely, one degree at a time, one chip at the rock at a time, have allowed us to have that freedom to move in a way of expression, move in a way of thought and creation, to be in a position to advance not only ourselves, our families, but also our communities and our culture at large. So for me, it's just a reminder to help other people understand that you're never truly alone. Regardless if you know someone intimately or if you know someone at a distance or an acquaintance, people are doing this work together to make sure that the overall opportunity to advance as a whole is always sustained in our culture.
Dr. Wade?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. You know, when I think of recent events, right, and we talk about it takes a village, I think about the power of social media and the various tweets and Facebook posts about, you know, check in on my people. How you doing? Are you okay? I think that we have been trained here as of recent to be able to have to check on each other. And for me, it's a question of, are we okay? I think it has a greater meaning. And what these events have shown me is that we have to look out for each other. And I think your segue of what does it mean to say it takes a village, that speaks to us and our own, not only our self well-being and health, but also our collective well-being and health. And what that looks like from a standpoint in my world of higher ed, you know, our parents reaching out, also saying, you know, I know you all are on the front line down there, hope everything's okay. Or vice versa, our students checking in on administrators and staff saying, hey, you know, Dr. Wade, are you okay? So I think in this space and time right now, it's a collective sigh of, we got to look out for each other. We've got to make sure we're promoting and taking care of our self-health and wellness, because that's essential right now. Because if we're not okay in this space and in this space, then we're not able to do the mission of the movement. So it's essential for us to make sure that we're practicing self-care and we're looking out for each other. That's part of the essence of what it means to be a village. You know, we've got to take care of ourselves collectively. That's essential.
That's awesome. Again, you listen to the Educate You podcast, been brought to you by My College Draft, where education is the new money. As we talk about it takes a village, talk about your village as you matriculated and became the persons that you guys are today. What went into your village? What were key ingredients in your village to help cultivate the men you are today? So Dr. Wade first, then Dr. Frierson, and then you, David.
Well, that's a deep one. You know, I think that when you get to a space where, you know, background wise for me, you know, I come from, you know, I know we often talk about our homes because I think often that informs who we are as individuals. So I come from the south side of Monroe, Louisiana, which is in the northeast part of Louisiana. First generation college student. My mother I have 3 other siblings. I was the only one up until recently to graduate from high school, let alone go on to college and graduate from undergrad. So when I think about my village, I have an opposite perspective. You know, I think we also think about it in terms of the positive aspects of people who rooted you on and who had your back. I think about it from the people who rooted against you, and those who put up those barriers to say that you'll never leave the spaces that you come from. I see those folk as being the catalyst for me to be able to get out of where I came from to be in another space. So from that standpoint, I think it's important to also reflect on those who rooted against you. So yeah, we need those people to be able to have your back and to say, you got this, you can do it. But for some of us who are motivated, you know, the grit aspect and the factor of who's going to have, what's the perspective of those who don't want to see you succeed, I think helped motivate me to come from where I came from. So that standpoint, yeah, my mom, my siblings, they were supportive. Individuals, you know, in school, at Grambling and beyond, when I went into my doc program, they were also supportive. But for me, the motivating factor was, I want to be able to show other people who didn't want to see me succeed, I want to show that village that I got this. So, and as I talk to young men, specifically young Black men in my line of work, that is also a part of their psyche is, you know, so many people thought I wouldn't make it. So many people thought I would not go to college, let alone graduate from high school. So I'm trying to put on for them to say, look where I am and look what I've done. So I think it's important from a reflective standpoint to not just think about the people who rooted for you, but be reflective of those who wanted your demise, so to speak, and be able to show them and use that fuel to be able to get to the space where you want to be able to succeed.
Yeah, for me, I think I'm 5 areas, right? So for me, being a military brat, like my geographic location changed a lot. So learning community at an early age. I mean, I moved to Berlin and started my formal education in Berlin, Germany, at the age of 2. And stayed there for 5 to 6 years, and then came back to the States. And then did my college, a part of my college in Mexico, and then did work in Ghana and things like that. So the geographical location of community and understanding how various aspects in this world will support you with that. So number one. Number two, definitely both of my grandmothers who instilled the spiritual aspect of and the prayers. And I'm very thankful, especially to my grandmother, Renee Lee Ward, who, in the spirit, I think just laid pathways down to cover the mistakes I was gonna make when I was a little boy, right? So she just knew, like, yeah, that one gonna need some extra hallelujahs on his life. But also kind of going in the vein of what Dr. Wade said. One group of community that I had that was unique in my growing up is this community of being around prisoners at a young, early age. Being stationed in Fort Leavenworth, going and being around those who were in the prison system and what they call the DB, disciplinary barracks in the military, and getting my haircut by them, seeing them do yard work, getting immersed in that culture just as a young boy, going to get my haircut all the time by there. And why that was important for me was I learned early on, I never came in and judged like, oh, they're a prisoner. Oh, I got more wisdom in the school of life from those individuals who will cut my hair weekend. This is how I got caught. This is what you don't need to do. This is what I was thinking in my mind, that I thought I was untouchable. I thought I could, and they just gave, those young men really gave me this understanding of like, sometimes one mistake can cost you your life. Sometimes one mistake can cost you your trajectory. And so just to be smart and glean from them and recognize like, these people aren't bad. They're not evil. Not all prisoners are evil. Not all people who are in the judicial system or in that system is evil, right? And so I learned from that. And then I didn't learn at the same time. I ended up making mistakes. And I remember one guy who, he gave me a second chance. And I'm very thankful for that as well. So the fact that, I have a unique kind of experience of being around different realms of life at an early age and learning from young prisoners, learning from different nationalities and countries at a young age, learning from my grandmother and spirituality, learning from people where I did make a mistake and someone gave me a second chance. I think I know for a fact, if those weren't present, I wouldn't have the empathy, the understanding of lived experiences, nor the compassion to give someone a second, third, fourth opportunity, because that was afforded to me. And I don't think I'll be here as Dr. Frierson. I'll probably be one of those statistics that we read about if that wasn't the case. So I'm thankful for those communities that helped shape me to where I'm at today.
Both of the gentlemen have touched a little bit on one part of my drive and I've shared before, being counted out basically from middle school on, because I have a learning disability. But one of the things that I have done and been able to do over the time is find ways to protect my energy, and doing that by surrounding people or having people around me who have this same like mind and same like energy. I did that in high school, I did that in college, and I do that now. In understanding that there is going to be a lot of negativity that's going to come your way, but being able to pick yourself up and have people around you who also will be able to do that. in understanding what that looks like and feels like. So for me, that's been a huge part of my village throughout the years. Some of those people have stayed around, some of them have left, but I also understand that everybody has a season and a reason for that, for them being in your life, and that may change and grow, and sometimes it doesn't, but definitely protecting your energy in those who are around you and making sure they also have your best interest in mind, and they're not just there to try to constantly take. It's okay to take it, but as long as they're giving back at the same time.
So, Dr. Wade, you said something that's sticking with me right now. So this first question is going to go to you. This next question, I should say, what do you do when the village is inefficient? When it's the only village that you have. Like, how do you overcome that?
You know, that's a fold arm moment right there. That's a deep one. You know, I think it really comes back to, I think self-motivation and determination is important. You know, I'll reflect back on my dissertation research, which was working primarily with African-American male students and their sophomore year experience and their ability to be retained. And one of those top factors on why those students said they made it from sophomore to junior year was their self-motivation and determination, that no matter who I had on my team, right, no matter who my village was, no matter who was rooting against me or who had my back, no matter which instructors or professors was like, yeah, you got it, no matter how many girlfriends I lost, no matter how many F's I got, the self-determination factor was essential. So I think in that same aspect, if somebody is determined that no matter how many broken steps I go up, I'm still going to get to the top, I think they're going to do what's necessary to do it. And I think in terms of no matter what the dynamics of your village may be, if you are determined to get to a better space, people are going to do it. You know, I was determined to lead a hood, you know, no matter what. And it's amazing. I saw a study recently. They said that most people who grow up, they end up, you know, 70% of people end up staying within 20 miles, I think it was, of the place where they were born and raised in, which I never saw myself coming back to this area. But I often find myself riding back down to my old hoods and just reflecting and seeing the dilapidated houses and, you know, the kids out there playing in the street, and just all those things are reflective. So I think in terms of the mentality of what it takes for us to get to a better space and to be better role models and better representatives of what we want to envision for our own selves and our own families and our communities, you can't focus so much on the village. The village is a support network. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to take against that at all, because I think we all need those people in your corner. But also, we've got to have that self-motivation and that self-determination. Say, you know what, man, I'm gonna get out of here and I'm gonna do better for myself, whether that means educational attainment, a better job, a better geographic location, better people in our lives, a better village. I think that self-determination and self-motivation, self-reflection on what that looks like is going to be essential to so many people for having that.
David, you go, and then Dr. Fryers can answer that same.
So for me, it brings up one of my favorite scriptures. Prayer without works is dead at the end of the day. So regardless of how much support that you have and many people that are in your corner, how much you praying about it, if you don't put in the work, it ain't gonna happen at the end of the day. So that's what it sounds like for me. Just making sure you put in the work. Everybody wants to leave a bad situation or a situation that they don't feel comfortable in, but everybody's not willing to put in the work and to get over those obstacles to get to where they want to be.
Well, I'm glad I didn't crack the spiritual thing first this time. I'm glad David beat me to it, because I sure enough had about 4 or 5 ready in the holster, ready to go. So I'm glad David cracked it open like spades.
Come on, scripture, pull them out. Pull them out.
Now I can play it. Well, you know, the question, now you know me, Lamont, the question was, what do you do when the village is insufficient? So we first got to define what a village is. And based off the definition of village, here I'm just looking at Google real quick for the people listening. I'm looking at Google, so you can check the facts here. But a village is a group of houses and associated buildings larger than a hamlet. and smaller than a town, situated in a rural area, self-contained district or community within a town or city, regarded as having features, characteristics of village life. What I do not hear in there, which goes back to what David is saying, is a village doesn't mean it has to be your source or your resource. Number one is that if you have your source being for me, God, and then whatever the vision, life, and skills that God has given me, we can look in the Bible real quick and see that Jesus was born in Bethlehem, but that was not his village. The village was the world. So what we can do is we can move, just because we don't have the sources or resources, because as long as we have the source, we might not have the resources, but we always look forward and go with vision, right? So if you have a vision, what Dr. Wade said was that I was determined. He spoke life in those words back to himself, saying, I was determined to get out. And there he is as a doctor right now speaking to us, because those words manifested life. And so, my whole thing is that you don't look at what's around you, you look at what's inside you to move forward. And so I don't look back and become a pillar of salt. I look forward in vision and go towards the king of what I need to do. And so I think it doesn't matter, goes back to what we talked about 3 weeks ago. It's that space analogy. It doesn't matter the hand I was dealt. As long as I played the hand, if I got 2 in the possible and I go forward with vision and faith, that possible becomes manifested. And so the question in itself, I understand what you're saying, but it's irrelevant. What if the village is lacking resources, because the resources is not the source. And so the source and my vision, if 2 or 3 are gathered, you know what I'm saying? If I agree with the source, then nothing else can defeat me. So I think it doesn't matter what your situation you were born into or what you think is lacking thereof. You got to see in yourself, and then things will be made apparent to give you additional resources to manifest the vision you have inside yourself. That's David. David pulled that out, so I have to follow.
Oh, this is a shout moment right here. We get a praise break up in this thing. Yes, indeed.
It always does my heart good when I have junior deacons on the panel. So if you could just humor me real quick, y'all. If you could build a perfect village, what would that look like? Dr. Dubois talked about the talented 10th, right? So what would your perfect village look like? We're going to go David, Dr. Frierson, and then you, Dr. Wade.
What my perfect village look like? That's a hard question to answer. I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on what perfect looks like to you, because it's going to be different for each and every person. My perfect may be different than somebody else's perfect. But at the same time, I know that I don't have all the resources for whatever perfect is, or actually know whatever perfect is. I can only go back to what we were just talking about a second ago, is follow the manuscript that was given to me, and that's the Bible. That's it. And with my family, try to build an immediate village that could then go on and make an impression in the world to a much bigger village.
I feel like Lamont today's trying to set me up with theological questions, but all right, whatever. I come ready with any tools I need. I wouldn't build a perfect village, because to build a perfect village is to say that you have completed and that you don't need anyone else. And if the whole title of this message is "It Takes a Village," then that means that we're all going to have weaknesses and shortcomings. That means we have to rely on one another to go together, not in independence. And so to have a perfect village means that sometimes with our humanistic mindset, that means that we have arrived. We are in ourselves, quote unquote, small g, God and goddesses. And then we'll lack motivation and determination to uplift our brothers and sisters in our community. So I wouldn't build a perfect village. I will continue to have the villages that we have. And what we do is teach the understanding of humility, the understanding of servitude, the understanding of shoring up the gap. He's not too heavy. He's my brother. So I mean, there's this various ways, but to say that we have a perfect village is to actually kind of rob us of understanding why we need to grow and why we need to continue to push forward.
Yeah, I think that's deep. I would agree wholeheartedly that, as our imperfections are what make us better. And, having the ability to surround ourselves with people with like-minded struggles and like-minded successes and victories and failures, I think in itself makes us better individuals and makes the village better. So I wouldn't want to be surrounded with that perfection of having the right people in the right place, because I don't think you learn from that. So I think everybody's assessment there is spot on.
Can I add to that too? And I want to make sure, because this is on me too, and I want to make sure that when the audience hears this, that they understand. There's good mentors and bad mentors. There's good mentors and bad mentors. There's mentors that we have in our lives that let us know we don't want to go down that path. It could be the way your father was as in your childhood. Not saying that my father was good, but it could be a rap idol. It could be a movie character. You know, a lot of people like Scarface and stuff like that, but there's a lot of things that he did. So there's could be good mentors and bad mentors. What you need though is a champion, right? You need someone who can speak into your life and give you opportunities and things like that. And so, you know, I just want to make sure people understand that when we talk about a village, you can see good mentors and bad mentors. You just have to recognize that sometimes the bad mentor serves a purpose as well, because it tells you what not to pursue for you to hit your goals. Whereas a good mentor tells you what skills and you know, habits and trends you need to have to expound on the goals that you see within yourself as well. So I just want to put that extra nugget in there.
Are you tired of all the emails and phone calls from colleges that you never even heard of? Sign up to where'smydocs.com and only work with the colleges that you choose. Where'smydocs.com, where college recruitment is made simple. And I'm glad you guys went that route, because what I often love to do is take away excuses. And so we know there's no such things as perfection, but I love how we maneuvering through this conversation, because it's important to understand that there's always a way out. Dr. Wade, this is our moment where we do a salute Saturday. And what we're going to do is we're going to salute Grambling at this moment. So yeah. Now, what I want you to do is talk about Grambling, highlight it up, man, because we the floor is yours, man.
Well, you know, I appreciate that. And, you know, Grambling is a special place for me. So I'll speak from a personal standpoint and professional, because I think they intertwine in my life. You know, it's when we say it's the place where everybody is somebody, you know, a lot of institutions, a lot of places have these mottos, but man, this is life for anybody that's ever gone through the campus of Grambling State University. You know, I can recall landing on the campus, you know, and my mama giving me the car, and I had $8 to get back from campus to take her car back and to get a Greyhound ticket to get back to the campus. And I didn't have it, but it were individuals at the institution, like Mr. Gray at the bus station, who made sure I had the money to get back. And I say all that to speak to the holistic mindset of what Grambling truly is, as a place where everybody is somebody. You know, it's the place where I met my wife. It's the place where I got my kids. You know, and proposed to my wife on the steps of her residence hall, and you know, she walked across the stage the next day flashing her ring at graduation. So it's a special place for me and so many of my classmates and colleagues who I work with to this day. And it speaks to why the place is so special. So when we get a student that comes to Grambling State University, I mean, I like to say we meet students where they are so we can get them where they need to be. And no matter where they come from, no matter their background, no matter how many scholarships they may have been offered or how many acceptances they have, they may come to Grambling as just a regular person, but they're going to leave as a legend. And we try to make sure that their parents and their village know that we're going to take care of them. So, you know, the institution is growing. We're going to be the first institution in the state of Louisiana and the nation to have a total digital library. You know, we've got that going on. We're knocking down buildings and we're growing what's next for the institution. You know, I can remember as a student being in the library, and, you know, it's just a space that was not conducive to learning. But now President Gallo's vision is seeing a new library. And that doesn't happen often on many campuses. You don't just see new libraries being built. So it's a place where, you know, history is being made, legends are being born, and more importantly, you know, students are being loved and cared for. So if you know somebody that's looking for a place where they can walk the halls and say, this is the place where I really feel like I'm somebody, have them send me a DM on Twitter so we can get them enrolled, because we're doing good things, and it's a place where it's very special for people to be able to traverse that campus and call it their educational home. So I appreciate getting that shout out, so I can shout out the place where everybody is somebody.
And first of all, I really love what you just did there. Can we get a little bit of the school song, please?
I don't know if y'all ready for that. You know, we can do a little neck. I can throw the band on my phone. We can play a little bit of that. We can take it. You know, I'm already in the stadium in the background, so we can really set it off and get live in the joint. So we can have this virtual homecoming right here on the podcast. We can get it popping.
Give me a little bit, man. Give me a couple of lines.
Listen, I think it's important. Dear Grambling, oh Grambling, we love thee, dear old Grambling. We're loyal to thee, our dear old school. We fight for thee forevermore. That's the main thing right there. And when life's gain is thought is won, the hills will ring with victory's song. Old Grambling, dear Grambling, we love thee, dear old Grambling. There we go, baby.
You see how that sounded, Dr. Frierson?
I see how pride and culture, when a village instills and it becomes part of the DNA of the individual, the fruit can do nothing but represent the root. And
Come on now. Come on.
That's what I see. So.
And Dr. Wade, tell me, because you could have went a lot of different places, why'd you choose Grambling?
You know what? I love this question. I'm gonna tell you why. Because I didn't choose Grambling. Grambling chose me. I had, and that's just real life. You know, I didn't have a lot of options. I wasn't a top scholar student. You know, I barely had a 2.0 GPA. So I applied for Grambling on a prayer and a whim, and they said, "Come on, let's be somebody." So, you know, in my mind, I wanted to go to a Howard or a Hampton or some of those places that I know I couldn't afford, number one, or did I not have the, you know, academic background to get into. But Grambling said, "No, come on here and make it home." And, you know, it's the best decision I've ever made in my life, because everything I have to this day is because of Grambling State University. So no matter where I am on my professional journey, whether it be here or in the future, it will always have a special place for me because it's given me so much. And so many of my classmates and colleagues who've also traversed that campus and gone on to do great things attribute their successes to the love, the nurturing, the empowerment that we received at Grambling. And, you know, I know our HBCUs are special without a doubt, and everybody has a story to tell for theirs. But for me, I could not have been anything that I am today without Grambling State University. So I'm eternally grateful. And that's something we try to pour back into the young people that come to the campus now, and to the parents who are a little cautious when they send some of their kids to HBCUs specifically. You know, we try to let them know that nobody does it like a HBCU does it. But that's no knock on anybody else's institution, but you're not going to see that type of love and attention like you get at the HBCU. It just doesn't exist.
Can I ask a question with that? Because this is something that I've been thinking about for a while. So full disclosure, I never had the opportunity to attend an HBCU. I ain't gonna say I never had the opportunity. I just didn't attend. I went to most predominantly white institutions, but I'm not gonna say I didn't have an opportunity. But do you think, as it takes a village and with the way that our culture is and the way society is currently, how beneficial, or can you speak to, I'm not gonna ask you to speak to your opinion, but more about the benefit, how beneficial is it for African-American students, Latino students, to at least attend at some juncture in their educational attainment, a stop at an HBCU or a predominant minority serving institution, tribal college, whatever it could be, that reflects their culture, master's, doctorate, or undergrad? How important do you think that is for them to get that? And what do you think enriches, what enrichment will they get from that?
Yeah, I think that's a solid question. And I think people are invested in these institutions because of the historic nature and the mission and the vision of those campuses, whether it be a HSI or HBCU. I think there's something unique about them. It's almost hard to define, but it's just something that you just don't get at every campus. I think that the caring, the hands-on, the always constant rooting for you, that village mentality, I just think is different at those type of institutions. I also feel like it's about the type of folk that end up working there, in most cases, they have been invested in those campuses, and they're therefore want to be invested in those students because they see a lot of themselves in those students, right? You know, I see a lot of myself in the students that I engage with that come into my office and they crash on my couch because they worried about their mama back home trying to get the light bill paid, or, you know, struggling to come up with the difference in paying a car note because she got to get to these 3 jobs she got. And most of the individuals who work on those campuses, not all, but most, they relate to those stories because they lived in that same ministry themselves when they were growing up. So I think it creates this kinship, almost this space-time connectedness between those students, where the work hits a little bit different and the environment kind of adds to that. So it's a caring, you know, village mentality, because everybody's trying to lay hands on these students to make sure they get it. And it's a little bit extra care and attention. Not to say that other institutions can't do it, or, you know, choose to or to not do it, but it really hits different at those, you know, HBCUs, those HSIs, because they have different philosophies and mentalities on what their personal connection is going to be with students. And I think a lot of it has to do with the folks that go back and work there, the people that have worked there for so long also. I think all those things play a very important role in how those students eventually are successful.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's important. You know, I think this is important too. You know, Lamont, you said something earlier in this episode today about eliminating excuses. And sometimes we hide behind our identities, like, oh, I'm at this PWI and they gave me a bad grade because I'm Black. No, you need to sharpen your writing skills. That's what it is. But when you go to an HBCU and you get that same grade and they hold you at a higher expectation, or I'm gonna say higher, but they hold you at those high expectations, to say it eliminates this excuse of first putting your identity and saying, oh, it's because of this. No, it's because we see that we got to put pressure on the coal to make the diamond. And so you got to receive that. You got to receive that process. And so, you know, for me, it also, you know, I encourage the students to try to do it at least at some juncture in their educational attainment. So that way they can get that enrichment of their culture, but they also see that we have scholars in our culture who hold you at high expectations, that want to make sure that you come out as a diamond. And so you can't use that identity as an excuse on why you're not being treated. I'm not saying it's not valid at PWIs. Trust me, I work. Right. But at the same time, it's another thing to eliminate and make you face what you need to do to sharpen your own skill sets.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. And, you know, I think, you know, every kid may not prosper in those type of environments. So some students need a different approach to education and higher education. Some students need a PWI. Some students need community college. I think there's a space for everybody when it comes to the higher ed spectrum. And some students just feel more comfortable in those, you know, HBCU, HSI studies. And I'll take my 2 girls, for example. I can see one of my babies going to HBCU. I can see it. I feel it out of her spirit. The other one, not so much. And that's okay. And I think too, parents and villagers need to be willing to have those intimate, honest conversations with a student and say, you know, but you might not do well here. You might need to consider X, Y, Z, because we're not doing those students a service if we're just constantly saying, go to HBCU, go to HBCU, when some of our students, they shouldn't be there. And we've got to have honest conversations with them so they can help to find their way, their path on what institution fits them best, because every student doesn't need to be at HBCU or HSI. Every student doesn't need to be at a PWI. But there is something for all of our young people if we have villagers who are talking to them about those options early on and not a year before they get ready to graduate. But that's another podcast for another day.
Again,
hey Lamont, that sounds like that's a book for show number 2. He just booked himself for episode part 2.
The email is coming, Dr. Wade. It's coming.
Put me down. I'll be back for that one.
Again, you listen to the Educate You podcast, being brought to you by My College Draft, where education is the new money. Previous podcast, we kind of talked about the personal development of students. And as I listen to the conversation, I just keep hearing the students who bring the broken village to the campus. How do you, when they do go to college, they're very astute enough to get into the school, but they bring the broken village to the campus. You can hear when they talk, you see it when they walk, you see it in their conduct. How is it possible to get rid of some of the shrapnel as they matriculate through our institutions? So I got about 6 eyes looking at me. Let's go with David first, Dr. Frierson, and then Dr. Wade.
I think is part of it is being able to grab those students, as we talked about before, and try to begin to mentor them. I know I get guys coming in and thinking they're this and they're that, and I always tell them, look, gangsters don't come to college. So whatever you was dealing with before, you got to figure out how to operate in this environment. That same energy is not going to work in this environment. And if you're talking about being successful and doing it a way where you're not going to end up in prison or jail or hopefully not dead, then we got to look at you making some changes. We got to look at this paradigm shift that you need to make in order for you to be able to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue into what I'm gonna share a story. Y'all know me. I'm gonna share a story. No, I think David hit it right on the head with this paradigm shift. I remember the first time. I don't know how many of you all on here have been able to be in a neighborhood or be around circles where it's like a billionaire neighborhood. The first time I had that happen was in Phoenix, Arizona. I was actually with my LB, who's from Monroe, Louisiana, actually. Shout out to Kid. But I got to go hang out with him and his wife, and we got to be in a neighborhood that's literally filled with billionaire residents. And walking into these houses, average house, I think the most affordable or the cheapest house in that neighborhood was like 9.6 million. And when I'm walking in here, this is the first time I ever walked in a house with a 16-car garage, 4 dishwashers, 4, a guest suite and things like that. And my mindset when I walked in was, why do you need a 16-car garage? Right? Why do you need that 16-car garage? That doesn't make sense to me. Because I'm coming from my village, right? I ain't been here before. I ain't never been to a village with a gate to the gate. That's the first time that ever happened. So I was like, why do you need a 16-car garage? And this is what this individual said. I have a 16-car garage because as someone who's been wealthy and who has possessions, I want to take care of my possessions and I want to take care of my cars. And out here in Phoenix, we have real bad dust storms that the sand can scratch up your paint. And as a student, I never wanted to be able to have guests at my house and my car be protected and their possessions not. And so I have a 16-car garage. So when I have guests over and there's a sandstorm, their possessions are protected just like my possessions, as if it was my own. It was a break in my. I was like, okay, it's not. I see it as excess. They see it as serving their friends and communities to make sure their possessions are not. It's just a different break, right? It's a thing of, what do you do with a $2 million painting if you know it's worth $2 million? Most people say we sell it. Other people say I'll keep it and live off the interest. Because if you get about 7% interest off of $2 million, that's a salary for some people, right? So it's a break in the mindset. And so your question, when we have students coming in, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes you don't know the difference of the elevation of thought for someone until you get into that presence and realize it's possible. I was literally in homes. It's called Paradise Valley, Arizona. Paradise Valley. So for fans who think I'm making this up, check it out. Paradise Valley, Arizona. I was literally in homes that was on MTV Cribs. And so when I got and I was immersed in that environment, the first thing that unlocked for me is, okay, this is foreign because I don't understand this mindset of having, the 16-car garage or the bar inside the bar at the pool and all. It looked nice, but I didn't get it. Number two, it let me know the fact that I'm here in this presence, that means it's evident for me to get to it, that I can get this for myself one day. So for some people who come from a broken village, we have to be patient to teach them things they don't know and get them that alignment, that new alignment paradigm-wise, but also let them realize that the fact that you are even here, that you got in, because to get into any college, you had to be accepted. That means someone saw value and worked in you. So the fact that you're here is evidence that you belong in this environment. You belong in this kind of atmosphere. And your job is now to gain all the tools and skill sets necessary to uplift other people's thinking from the broken village you came from, so that you understand, so that they understand that sometimes what is seen as access or our excess, I should say, is actually a purpose behind it. You know, sometimes with those people with big cars, you know, I'm a tall guy. Y'all know me, David and Lamont. I'm a tall guy. I got some other friends that's tall, 7'2", things like that. We can't be up in a Toyota Camry. we hurt the knees. We have to have certain cars with certain length and things like, you see what I'm saying? And so it brings in a different understanding of how you serve and how you provide purpose to those around you, and making sure that you're really being humble around those around you as well. So that's my 2 cents for that.
And that's deep. You know, I'm sitting here trying to envision these 16-car garages. Like, I just can't even wrap my mind around it. But I've made notes so I can check this out. The broken village thing, you know, students who come to you and they are just, they don't feel like, you know, it's almost like a different type of imposter syndrome. They don't feel like they belong in the campus community because so many people never expected them to be there. And, you know, we as practitioners of our craft, we have a responsibility to root them on through good and bad times, and to be, you know, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. You know, the 2 ears are to make sure that we're actively listening more than we speak. And it's important that when these students come to us and, you know, they're pouring themselves out and they're talking about their stories and their struggles, their sacrifices to get to where they are. And one thing we need to make sure we're doing is not minimizing the acceptance of our students at these institutions as well. And I think Dr. Frost mentioned something about that similar earlier about, you know, we've got to be supportive of a student who decides to go to an HBCU or an HSI or a community college. You know, they've got to be rooted on and supported, because the broken village may not have expected them to even get to that point. And so often we've set this unrealistic expectation that you graduate high school, you go to college. We need to support the kid that decide to want to be on working on the light poles and, you know, linemen and engineers and vocational technologies. We need to support students in their paths and their journeys, because of the fact that that's what we should be programmed to do by now, because they come from these broken spaces. Not all, but so many of them have fought and scratched to get out of the places that they come from, and they need support. They need real conversations, first of all. It shouldn't be no glossy covered, oh, you can do this, it's going to be easy. No, it needs to be real conversations about this. It's going to be hard, and somebody's rooting behind you, sharpening the blade, and you got to be prepared to turn around and smack it back. So we've got to be able to prepare these kids that are coming from these broken villages, or these non-existent villages as well, that you're going to get through it, and I'm going to have your back to see it through, so you can get the 16 cars and be able to call out all the homies that didn't think you were going to be the one to get out. Come park your ride at one of my garages. So we've got to build a culture of support. You know, part of those villages should have strong foundations, right? And when the foundations are cracked, we need to be able to be the ceiling. And we need to be able to pour into those students to fill those gaps, so they know that they can be sustained and they can be whole and they can be successful. And far too often I speak this primarily, not just our guys, but I hear a lot from our young women who have been given these unfair expectations of beauty and standard, trying to compete with others on which wig and which, I mean, it's a lot. So we as men, primarily Black men, we got to be able to reframe the narrative of village expectations too. And when we do that, the village wins. You know, no matter who you didn't have on your team, we can be supportive of each other if we're framing the appropriate narrative for these young people. Because I'm gonna tell you, and I don't know all of you intimately, but I'm looking forward to getting to that space. These students got a lot of trauma. They got a lot of struggles in their lives. And not enough of us say, I love you. And not enough of us are rooting them on appropriately. So when we get to that space, the totality of the village is going to be in a lot better shape for all of us.
Man, that was profound. What's been confirmed throughout this whole podcast is, I mean, we've been talking a lot about vision, and Ricky was talking about once he saw what a house of that magnitude looked like. So it ties into this. It ties into a confirmation that I was told that it is the man who speaks vision into the children, right? It's that shapes the vision. And so as we're talking, I'm seeing all this anointing that's on you guys' life. Also too, I've learned about getting cornrows in prison. my man got the, I ain't gonna say nothing, I ain't gonna mention no names, but just getting haircuts and cornrows in prison, I think that can be a profound thing for people as well. But Dr. Wade, this is what we do right now. What we do is we speak life towards the end of the podcast, right? And so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna have you come last. I'm gonna have David, then Dr. Frierson, and then you close us out, Dr. Wade. But speak life into those broken villages once again for us, please. Go ahead, David.
Okay, I'm gonna actually piggyback a little bit off of what Dr. Wade said about having 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we talked earlier about having a good mentor and bad mentor a little bit briefly. But once you have a good mentor, please understand that faith comes by hearing. And the biggest thing is that faith comes by. My question to you, are you hearing it? So I would challenge you to actually hear the wisdom, the suggestions, the uplift, the encouragement, the backing, and embody that and move forward.
I see David came with his Ginsu knives today. He just sharp all around today. Okay, David. Feel like I need to go ahead and turn up. We in the 4th quarter, and David up here putting points on the board today. Okay, all right. I think my closing remarks won't be as deep as David's today. But I think my closing remarks is that if you come from a broken village, if you made it out and you're in this new foreign atmosphere that you're unsure of, you're at a higher level of altitude. See, everybody wants to make it to the top, but people forget that the air is thinner as you get higher in altitude. The terrain is more rugged. The resources needed is more dire. In some kind of way, you made it out of the broken village and you're starting to get higher in altitude. And there's 2 things you should first celebrate. Number 1, you made it out. Number 2, hopefully what you realize vision-wise is maybe you, with all your mistakes, all your flaws, the things that no one will ever know about in your life, with all the lack of resources or the bad mentors you might have had, and some of the good mentors you got, and the people trying to speak wisdom into you, tell you they love you, etc. But maybe you were chosen to come back and repair the village that you came from. Maybe you were the solution to the community to establish what a village should be. Maybe you are the one who's supposed to be the generational breaker of things that have always happened. And so when you start to realize, like, out of everybody that came out of my community, I'm the one who made it the furthest, or I'm the one who made it out. Maybe there's a call, regardless of how unspecial you think you might be, that you've been chosen to do this work and to figure out ways to, the fact that you made it out, I always tell people, if you made it out, make sure you push the elevator back down so people don't have to go up the stairs like you had to get up to where you're at. So you realize that there's a blessing, and with great responsibilities, with great calls come with great responsibilities. So realize, celebrate that you made it out, and realize you might be the one who has to repair that village, and that you're creating a new vision for the village. You're creating a new understanding of what needs to be, and don't be conformed or conditioned or pressured by those who are still in the village. Like, well, that's not. You change. You're supposed to change because you made it out. And what you're trying to do is change their mindset so that they can make it out too. So just realize that, celebrate the fact that you made it out, and maybe recognize that you're chosen to repair the village once you're done.
That's amazing. That's overflow. I often think when I'm in spaces with Black men who are speaking into existence the greatness that are not just us, but our people and our communities, and the power of education. I think it's so essential. I like to use the analogy when I'm talking to my students who come in, many of them tattered and broken and shattered, that, a Lego masterpiece, no matter how many pieces there are to a Lego, they're all broken into pieces when you start, right? You got to build it up. You got to put piece by piece, brick by brick, to get to the end game, to get to the end result of what makes that's on the box. When we see it, it's like, oh, look at that. I'm gonna put that together. that's what we do. You know, we're helping to put these pieces together for these young people and these folks who are struggling with so many different challenges to get to the masterpiece at the end. But it's got to be piece by piece. You don't just pour it out on the table and it's already together. So it's broken. You've got to put it together. And those pieces come together in different shapes, different colors, which equate to different struggles, different challenges. But at the end of the day, it comes together. It's a beautiful masterpiece. So we got to instill in folk that, you know, you may be tattered, you may be shattered, you may be broken, but once we get those pieces put together, you'll be a work of art. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, piece by piece. You'll get to where you need to be, enjoy the struggle, see the beauty of it, and at the end of the day, let your masterpiece be what it's ordained to be. And if that happens and that comes to pass, everybody else will see it too.
Man, that was good. That was good. Dr. Wade, thank you so very much for being a part of today's podcast and confirm that it really does take a village. Thank you so much, everybody. Again, you've been listening to the Educate You podcast brought to you by My College Draft, where education is definitely the new money. OC.